Hey everyone, welcome back. This is the At the Kitchen Table podcast. I'm Jason Klink, your host. This is episode number 2 with the title, What We Don't Talk About, But We Really Should. Have you ever noticed most people aren't struggling because they don't have the answers? They're struggling because they're not having the right conversations. We talk all day, at work, at home, on our phones. But when it comes to conversations that actually matter, we avoid them. Or we skim the surface, or we tell ourselves, now is not the right time. And then we just move on. And that's what I want to talk about today. So pull up a chair and sit down at the kitchen table with me. If you've listened to the first episode, you know what this is all about. It's about real conversations, the kind that happen when people sit down, pull up that chair, and actually talk. No scripts, no filters, just real. But here's the problem. We've gotten really good at talking without actually saying anything that matters. Think about most conversations during the day. You may ask someone, how's it going? Good. How about you? Busy. And that's it. And we move on. But underneath it all, there's stress, there's pressure, there's things people are dealing with that never get said out loud. And over time, that adds up because what we don't talk about doesn't go away. It just sits there. For me, a lot of this goes back to the firehouse. If you've ever worked in that environment, you know you spend a lot of time together, long shifts, high pressure calls, real situations. And after certain calls, you end up back at the station, take your gear off, grab a cup of coffee or soda, and sit back down at that kitchen table. And then the conversation starts. Well, sometimes, but a lot of times it doesn't. You joke, you deflect, you talk about anything but what just happened. And don't get me wrong, that humor, that culture, it has its place. It helps people cope. But it can also be a way for people to avoid what actually needs to be talked about. I've seen both sides. I've seen the surface level conversations where everyone acts like they're fine. I've seen the real ones where someone finally says something like, hey, that one really stuck with me. And the whole tone of the room changes because now it's real. Now people start opening up. Now you actually talk about it. And those conversations, they matter. Probably matter more than most people realize because the strongest people I've worked with weren't the ones who avoided those conversations. They were the ones who leaned into them. And this isn't just about the fire service. This is about life. Think about your own situation. How many conversations are you avoiding right now? I can think of a few. At home, with your spouse, with your kids, with your family, or even with yourself. How many times have you said, I'm good, when you're really not? How many times have you pushed something off because it was too uncomfortable to bring up? We all do it because it's easier. It's easier to keep things light, keep things moving, avoid that tension. But here's the reality. The longer you avoid a conversation, the harder it becomes to have. And eventually it shows up anyway, in frustration and distance and things left unsaid. Some of the most important conversations in your life are the ones you're probably putting off right now. It's time to rip off that Band-Aid. So why do we do this? Why do we avoid the conversations that matter? It comes down to a few things. First, fear of conflict. Nobody likes to have things get uncomfortable. Nobody wants an argument, so we avoid it. Second is the fear of being wrong and embarrassing yourself. If you say what you really think, you might get challenged. You might have to rethink something, and that's not always easy. Then the third is the fear of being seen. This is the big one, because when you have a real conversation, you're not hiding anymore. You're putting something out there, how you feel, what you think, and what you're dealing with. And that takes vulnerability. And let's be honest, that's not something most people are comfortable with. It's easier to stay on surface level. It's easier to scroll on your phone than it is to sit across from someone and say what you really mean. So how do we change that? How do you start having better conversations? It's actually simpler than people think. It starts with honesty. Not perfect honesty, not polished, just real. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, hey, I've got something on my mind, or asking a better question. Not how's everything, but what's really been going on with you lately? And then you stay in it, even when it gets uncomfortable, especially when it gets uncomfortable. Because that's where the real conversation starts. That's where the real growth begins. And one more thing, you don't always have to fix it. There's a lot of us that are fixers, me included. Sometimes people don't need answers. They just need to be heard. Some of the best conversations I've had or been a part of started with someone just saying, "Hey, you good?" and actually meaning it. So if this podcast is about anything, it's about having those real conversations that most people avoid. Because that's where growth happens. That's where understanding happens. That's where things actually change. So here's what I'd ask of you this week. Have one real conversation. Just one. Don't avoid it. Don't push it off. Just have that and see what happens. If you're here listening to this, I appreciate you. And I encourage you to be a part of the conversation moving forward, because the best ones are the ones that we're having together. So do me a favor, pull up a chair, sit down at this kitchen table, and let's have those conversations. Thanks for joining us today. Be on the lookout for the next episode. And as always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have a great day.